All right, talking into my mic for a real quick test. All right, cool.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Ken. I'm one of the co-founders of Shop3D.ca, and today we are doing a live showcase of the Craftbot series of printers. I have with me Felix, our senior applications engineer from our Mississauga office, and I also have a special guest, Jackie, our technical director, all the way from our Vancouver office as well. I will go to them in a second, but first I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing today. This is a live production, so everything you see is live. If there are any mistakes, we apologize. And we actually have two locations where you can watch us live. You can be on our main page, Shop3D.ca, and you can click right underneath to play everything from there. Or you can go to our YouTube channel, and under this live stream, you can also chat with us and ask questions as well. We will be doing a question and answer at the end of the session, so feel free to leave questions in there, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Shop3D.ca is a premium 3D printing reseller here in Canada. We have offices in Mississauga and Vancouver, and we primarily focus on prosumer level printers, which is why we're very excited to bring in Craftbot as a printer line with us. Just a quick shout out to a couple people. First of all, I want to thank John from Craftbot who made this possible, and I'll go into a little bit story with John a little bit later. But secondly, I also want to thank the 3D Printing Canada group who is joining us as well. We're very happy to be a part of that community. So without waiting too long, what we're going to do today is we're going to get through the live showing of the Craftbot line. And we're going to start all the way at the bottom at the entry-level version, which is the Craftbot Plus Pro. And I'm going to go to Felix so he can tell us some impressions of the unit.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing okay. So my first impression when we unboxed this was that it was sturdy, it was heavy, but not too heavy for one person. And everything was kind of assembled. It's all metal. You get a spool holder, you install it, and you're basically good to go. So very quick setup. Within 5 to 10 minutes, we were basically printing.
Yeah, and we did an unboxing just about a week ago. We will be living that video very, very shortly as well. So if you want to see a detailed unboxing with us, definitely check out our YouTube channel for that video. But the surprising thing for us when we unboxed it, Felix, was how quickly it took, right? We barely had to level the bed.
Yeah, we actually didn't level the bed. We just we loaded up Craftware, which is the slicing software for this printer, on our laptop. We sliced a very simple file, which actually, when you open up Craftware, you get this little bot. I think it's called Crafty, and we just sliced it with the default settings, loaded it on the USB stick that comes with the printer, hit print, and that's it. It was super simple. Anybody can do it, and the software itself is very intuitive, and it has a bunch of information if you're very new to 3D printing that will guide you through how to set up a print and what all the settings are.
Awesome, and I don't want to leave Jack without him getting a voice in, so let's go all the way to our Vancouver office. I want to introduce Jackie, our technical director and co-founder of Shop3D over there. And Jackie, what have you got for us today?
Hey guys, yeah, so we have the Craftbot Flow XL. So as you can see, it's XL, so it's super huge. My unboxing experience was very much the same as Felix's. Everything is solidly built, but it is in a much bigger box. So it does come on a small crate, and basically we just unboxed it. You do need about 2 people because it is quite heavy. But once we're set up, printing the first few objects was super easy, and you will notice some differences, which we'll probably get into soon.
Yeah, and that it looks like a huge printer in comparison, especially when you're standing beside it. It looks like it's got big build volume, which is what a lot of people love. And I do want to mention that it is the Craftbot Flow Generation Idex XL. So it's the top of the line. It's the largest build volume with the dual extruders. And we'll get into what dual extrusion means in just a second. But I want to go back to Felix so we can talk a little bit about that very versatile Plus Pro and some of the specifications for it. Felix, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with a few things that matter to most people, which is build volume. So the build volume here is 10 inches on the X, 8 inches in the Y, and then 8 inches tall. It's an all-metal hot end, which means that it's a little bit more reliable than, if you have any plastic parts in there. And also it's a direct drive. So, printing with any filament, is a little bit better because you have more control over the flow of the filament. And also, even with TPU, which is a flexible filament, you should have an easier time. The maximum temperature on the head is 260 degrees Celsius, and then the bed goes up to 110. So you can print quite a few materials on here, like PLA, ABS, nylon, and so on.
Yeah, and it uses the 1.75 millimeter diameter standard, so it's very easy to find a lot of different types of filaments for it, whether it's Craftbot or third party. Felix, tell me a little bit about what comes with the printer, since the unboxing is still fresh in your mind.
For sure. So it's first of all the printer, you get that, and then you get the glass plate, which actually has a layer of Kapton tape on one side, so you can choose to use that. You get a spool holder, you get a roll of white PLA, you get the USB stick, a power cable, of course, and some tools in order to maintain things on the printer here.
Awesome. So pretty much everything you need to get started. Let's go back to Jack. Hey, Jack, I want to ask you, now that you haven't had personal experience with the Plus Pro, but you do have the Flow XL, and what are some of the differences that you've noticed right away in comparing with the entry-level unit and your top-of-the-line unit?
Yeah, so the biggest difference, is the build volume. So we printed a huge build volume object here. So this is the full size. So you can see just how massively different it is from actually a lot of other printers, not just the Pro Plus. So
that looks awesome,
difference
Jackie.
here.
What is that print anyway?
This is well, we're in Vancouver, so we're quite environmentally conscious here. So this is our new recycling bin. Yeah, so it's fairly large and cool.
Okay, so Jackie, tell me a little
Yep.
bit about some of the specifications for that unit before we get into some of the nitty-gritty details, which we will get into. But tell us about, what exactly is the build volume of that unit and what does Idex mean?
Yeah, so the build volume is 425 by 250 by 500 millimeters. So that's, as you can see here. So it's actually quite wide, and the benefit of that is you can use that with dual extruders. So Idex means it's independent dual and white, and we did this on clone mode. So essentially, we can print both sets at the same time by just loading black and white on the two different sides. So that's the advantage of the Idex system. So that's what you can see here. And you can do other things with that too. You can use soluble supports. You can use hard and soft materials. So having two materials really opens up the opportunities for printing different types of things. It's not just about two colors. It's about different materials used together. So that's one major difference. And then the other major difference
let me just chime in here real quick, Jackie. In terms of build volume, you've given us the millimeter equivalent, and we all understand that in Canada. But some of us are, imperial based, and that just translates to 16.6 inches by 9.8 inches by 19.7 inches. So we're talking about a very, very tall printer as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
And Jack, can I ask you a question? In terms of the build plate, they're both glass build plates, but yours is a little bit different. It's got some flow generation features for it.
Yeah, so the difference on the build plate is you can see it's a metal sheet here. It's a fairly thin metal sheet, and the benefit of that is it's magnetically attached onto the build plate. So when you're finished printing your parts, so something as large as the recycle bin that we made, what you can do is you can actually just lift this all out. I don't want to do this now because all the pieces will go all over the place, but it bends, and you can bend the sheet, and essentially your part will just pop right off. It is a kept-on surface as well, and it does have auto mesh bed leveling. So before the print, it will probe the bed on a whole bunch of different surfaces here, and it'll make sure that your first layer sticks really well. So it is a full-featured large format printer.
Yeah, and I want to get into that, talk about the specs of that extruder. It is direct drive Idex as well, but I understand that it has a higher maximum temperature than what the Plus Pro can do, right?
Yeah, it can go up to about 300 degrees. So you have a little bit more headroom in doing different types of materials, and then all the presets in Craftware are set so that you can easily access, TPU, ABS, PETG, all the common materials. So it makes it really easy to essentially use all the different combinations.
Understood. Now, if the hot end can go up to 300 degrees, what are some materials that are starting to push on that limit?
You can use polycarbonate or carbon fiber nylon. You'd have to change the nozzle if you want to use carbon fiber, but I would say nylon and polycarbonate are the two higher temperature materials that edge around 280 to 300. It depends how fast you're printing, but the faster you print those materials, the higher your temperature should be. So I would say polycarbonate is probably one of the top temperature materials that you can print.
Awesome. I'm going to bring it back to Felix here in Mississauga. Felix, can you tell us some more features that you've noticed on this printer? Now, I know you've had a lot of experience unboxing different types of printers because we have a lot around here, but what are some notable differences that you see from the Craftbot with some of the other brands we have?
For sure. So I'll tell you a bit more about my experience. So I printed quite a few things here with different materials as well, different brands and stuff like that. But some things that I noticed as I got to know this machine is it's easy to use. So like the touchscreen is super responsive, and once you know where things are, you can go around here, change things, load filament, unload filament, do some bed leveling as well. And also I noticed that the printer is really, really, really quiet. So if I move it right now, where's my thing? It's super quiet. Like you're not even going to be able to hear it if you're just kind of working beside it. All you hear is the fan going. Another thing about this printer is that it's actually a Core XY machine. And what does that mean? It means that the motion system is a little bit different than what you're used to, which is like a Cartesian on Ultimaker or on a lot of other machines. And what this means is that when only one motor works, actually, the head is going to move in diagonal. And in a Core XY, it means that both motors will have to move together in order to move the printer left and right. So what does that give you? It gives you a little bit more speed, a little bit more rigidity, and overall, it's better to lug a little bit of a heavier head here.
Awesome, Felix. Thanks for that. And very technical. Thank you for those of us who are joining. I want to go back to Jack. In comparison, Jackie, you also have a touchscreen. You have a different design because it's Idex. But can you tell me, is your touchscreen the same type of touchscreen as on the Plus Pro, or are we looking at a different upgrade?
I think it is a different touchscreen. So both interfaces are quite good, but this touchscreen is much more responsive. So it is a capacitive touchscreen. The great thing about the UI is everything is right there. So for example, if I wanted to preheat my machine, I literally just hit the bed and then hit the nozzle, and you can see it's already preheating. So everything is within like 1 or 2 clicks. You're not going through a lot of menus to do everything else. So I mean, like if you want to move the bed up and down, it's literally a touch away. So that's what I really found was really straightforward and easy to use about this particular machine. The UI is just straight to the point, and it's very obvious what you're supposed to do with it. So that's a fantastic option.
Thanks, Jackie. Okay, so right now I'm going to bring it back to me. And for those of you who are watching and might be interested in the unit, let's talk a little bit about pricing and availability. So first of all, we have these in Canada. They're in stock. They're certified. They're ready to go out. And I'm going to start off at the Plus Pro. With the Plus Pro, we're only looking at a promo price right now of $18.65, and that's in Canadian dollars plus tax for this unit. And it is a promotional price right now. So we're going to have a little bit of a promotional price because we're doing not only this live showcase, bringing Craftbot on, but because it's almost approaching the holiday season, and it might be a good gift for someone you like. Now, if I go over to Jackie's unit, which is the CraftFlow Idex XL, that unit, a good gift for someone you like. Now, if I go over to Jackie's unit, which is the CraftFlow Idex XL, that unit, and I gotta say, even though it looks like a big price tag, in comparison with some of our other printers, it's actually extremely well priced. And I seem to be forgetting something. Jackie, what's in the middle between these guys?
I'm sorry?
Jack, what's in the middle between the two units that we have?
Yeah, so we have the biggest unit here, and then Felix has the smallest unit. So there are like 3 other models in between. So there is a smaller version of this one, Idex, and then there's another Flow as well.
Yeah, so you can actually get the XL version without the Idex also. So you'll just have a single extruder, but a larger build volume. So you can kind of choose between different models. We chose to focus on the entry level and the top level because it gives us a good stark contrast between the features you're getting. Felix, I want to kind of go over to you for a second. And I know you don't have the dual extrusion printer with you because you have the single extrusion printer. But in terms of dual extrusion, let's get into this a little bit more. What are some of the things that we can do with dual extrusion printing that's not available on the single extrusion? And I'll let Jackie chime in anytime as well for this.
For sure. So with a single extrusion machine, you're a little bit limited in terms of what you can do. So if you needed like a model like this, for example, so it's like a little manifold, and if you look inside it, actually you will need supports for this part here. So with this machine, the Craftbot Plus Pro, you have to use the same material, which means that you have to manually pull out the supports and clean them up. And sometimes that's good enough and the surface finish is okay. But sometimes that's not possible for parts where you can't really get inside. Another thing that you can't do here, but you can do on Jackie's machine is do dual prints with multiple materials. So for example, you can have a PLA core here and then a flexible TPU on the outside. So those are the main 2 differences that I'd say.
Yeah, let me go over to Jackie for a second.
Choosing between the 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jackie, Felix has talked about multi-material, but can you tell us about water-soluble support and what options we have in terms of dual extrusion support materials?
Yeah, so I would say that's the best and most interesting way to use dual extrusion. A lot of people, when they think dual extrusion, they're only thinking different colors like black and white. But the real awesome use of it is the soluble supports. So everyone knows when you're printing, removing supports is kind of the worst thing about it. You print an object and you have to break out all the parts, and then you could potentially break your part if the support settings aren't right. So by using soluble supports, we remove the whole manual process. So for something like this, this would be a dual support part. This is done in PLA, and this is a soluble support. So this is actually BVOH. And then you can dunk this in water, and then once this dissolves, you have your full part at the end. So that just opens up a lot of opportunities for printing designs that normally you wouldn't be able to do anywhere else. So that's sort of my favorite part about dual extrusion printing.
Awesome. And Felix, let's just get into a conversation about Idex as well. So Idex, is compared with other systems where you can have multiple extruders on one head. How did those technologies compare? And do you prefer one over the other?
I like the Idex, but only when the build volume is really, really big, because I think Jackie touched on it a little bit. When you have a really big X dimension on your build plate, you're able to really utilize those two heads properly and really print big parts. So like instead of having sort of like, if you're looking at the Craftbot Plus Pro here, if you had two independent heads and you wanted to use both of them at the same time for duplication mirror mode, it's going to be very tight. You're going to be able to print small parts. Okay, but on the XL, which is Jackie's machine, it's going to be a lot more, it makes a lot more sense to have that. So I like it a lot when it's on a big build volume.
Awesome. And Jack, since you have the XL and the Idex, Felix touched on multiple parts at once with dual extruders. Tell me a little bit about mirror mode and duplication mode and how, what kind of applications that's for.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see on our bed, but we have a full chess set, as I mentioned earlier. So you can print things like this where you need an exact replica of the parts. So if you're doing serial production, you can go clone mode and essentially make two at once. So you're having your time in terms of printing. And then in clone mode, in mirror mode, you can basically make the same object but mirrored. So this is helpful if you're, for example, printing an action figure. You want to print two legs, two arms. You just set it to mirror mode, and it will print two at once, left and right side. So it's super convenient that way, and it just halves the time, and we can do more printing.
Awesome. And I want to bring it back to Felix right now and get back to the Plus Pro, because we've talked a lot about Idex. Felix, can you tell me, in terms of that unit and that price range, who are some of the people who might be considering this unit and what applications they might be using it for?
For sure. So I see kind of two main people that might be getting this is sort of the person that is starting out with 3D printing. They're looking for a machine where they just want to 3D print something, right? They don't want to really tinker with it. They don't want to build it. They just want something that works out of the box and just kind of dive into the 3D printing space. So that's one person. The other person that might enjoy this machine is libraries and education environments like high schools, universities even, where they need something that's reliable for their students to use, or even patrons if you're in the library, where you can print PLA, you can print a whole bunch, and they're easy to set up for anybody with probably like a 10-minute kind of tutorial. So those are the main two people that I see.
Yeah, and it's extremely quiet when it was printing, so I can see this being in a library environment and working well. Jack,
hey, Ken,
let's go to you. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I did want to touch on a couple of features that we didn't mention that might matter to people. Is that both the printers, any of them actually, have not cloud connectivity, but they have Wi-Fi. So you can actually hook up your software directly to the printer over Wi-Fi and then send your parts that way. And the other feature that maybe might not be super useful here or super important because the build volume is a little bit smaller, but it has a power resume option. So for a big printer like Jackie's, if you're printing something really, really massive and then somebody for some reason disconnects your cord, or you have a quick power outage or a long one, you're actually able to resume the print from where it stopped. So you're not going to be losing hours and hours of printing at a time, which are two great features on this machine.
Yeah, that's definitely great. And thanks for bringing that up, Felix. I almost forgot about that. But I do want to talk about something a little bit more superficial. And that is choice of colors of the different printers. So let's start with Jackie. Jack, do we have a choice of colors for the Flow XL?
Yeah, so there's a white version and there's also a grayish silver version. So you have two options there.
Okay. And Felix?
And this color changes.
Yeah, we have one more color. So we have the gray that you see here. We have a white one, and we also have a blue one, which I really hope this one was going to be blue because I've never seen a blue printer before.
Yeah, we're really focused on this blue printer because we thought that's what we were unboxing, but it was gray, and we were a little bit disappointed. But that just because all the printers we've seen are some shade of gray and white and black, but we don't have any blue printers, and that would be really awesome in our showroom as well. So, sorry, just some superficial stuff, but very important for people who are looking for something a little bit more unique versus the others. So Jack, I want to get back to you. I think we skipped you on this, but who are some of the people who would be looking for an Idex printer specifically, and what are some of those special applications that would require Idex and a heated glass bed?
Yeah, so I think this model specifically, I think the perfect person would be someone who's looking to get into printing quite large objects. So build volume would be my first choice to suggest someone. And it's also one of our lowest cost dual Idex printers. So that's something to consider as well. It's significantly less expensive than some of the competitors. So I would say that's probably the biggest draw as well. The three main features I would say on this one for whoever's thinking about buying one is just the massive build volume, the Idex, and just the simplicity and the ease of use for the machine.
Gotcha. And now we have a lot of, we're very blessed here at Shop3D because we have access to a lot of great different printers. And every printer brand is a little bit different in how they do things. So I want to be, very transparent and very open in terms of discussing some of the pros and cons of each brand. So Felix, I'm going to go to you first. Now, you don't have the Idex system there, but I know you've played with a lot of different Idex printers that we have. Can you tell me some impressions, that are different between Craftbot and those printers?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I saw lacking in the Idex version of Jackie's machine there is that it doesn't have a filament sensor. And I think that for really big build volumes, when you're printing really big things, you're gonna go through spools of filament really, really quick. So I think I think that may be an add-on that's gonna be added in the future, but I'd be happy to see if it just came on the printer.
Yeah.
Just to interrupt here. I think there is actually a filament sensor in there. I personally haven't seen it activate yet, but when I was taking the fan shroud apart, I did see a filament flow sensor. So that might be something I just maybe don't have activated yet on the menu system.
Oh, amazing! Sorry, I didn't know. I thought it
didn't have
one there.
Yeah, and what about in terms of size comparison, Felix? What other printers? How does this compare size-wise to some of our other printers?
I think that this is probably on the same level as like the BCN3D W50, which is like a really, really big printer already, but the Craftbot actually beats it in the Z direction. So I think the Z on the W50 is only about 17 inches, where the Craftbot is about 19 and a half, I think you said. So a little bit different there. But again, the XL is not enclosed, the W50 is, but those are small things that can be added on later.
Yeah, and we do have to take into consideration that the price of the W50 versus the Flow Idex XL, is a stark difference. We're talking almost 50%, of a discount if you compare between them. So I think for the value, Craftbot is really brought it there in terms of Idex, direct drive, heated bed, and the build volume that's enclosed. So Jack, I want to bring it back to you. What are some things that you notice, about Craftbot that's more unique and not available in other printers?
There's a few other things too. The magnetic bed, I would say, is the most unique. That's not a bed that I've seen on other similar type of printers. At least the magnetic plus Kapton combination is quite new. I mean, we've seen some other magnetic beds and whatnot, but this particular one is quite different. The other thing too is it's got linear rails, so it makes it a lot quieter. A lot of other printers use sort of just rods, but this X gantry is on linear rails, and so is the Z. So that's where I would say is quite unique. And it's just the combination of like the size and Idex is usually you can only get on a much more expensive printer. So I would say that's probably where it's the most unique.
Awesome. And let me bring it back to Felix. We haven't touched on this too much. I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but can you tell me a little bit about the slicer that comes with the Craftbot?
Yeah, so it comes with a slicer that's made by Craftbot. It's called Craftware. Very simple slicer, very similar to Cura, other slicers out there. It is unique. I really like the way that you can manipulate your camera angles, and I really like the feature where when you do go into expert mode, it's not just a bunch of random words like extrusion width that might be really unfamiliar to a lot of people that are just getting into 3D printing. It actually has pictures and explanations about every single setting, so that when you tweak it, you know what you're doing. So that's a big plus on that software, and it's actually very fast. Compared to other ones that I've used. The one thing that we didn't touch on, Ken, I want to ask you is like, what is the warranty like on these machines?
That's a good question. So the warranty for Craftbot is actually a little bit different than some of our other printer counterparts. Usually, the standard warranty is a 1-year warranty, but for Craftbot, it's actually up to 5 years or up to 5,000 hours of printing, whichever comes sooner. So that's a very different type of warranty, and actually, I think that works for a lot of the clientele that we have it as well, because they don't use it as much of a workhorse, but they might get printing once in a while. What do you think about that, Felix? How would you like that warranty in comparison?
I like it. I mean, 5 years is a long time. So if you're not using the printer for every day, 24/7, that's a great thing to have. Instead of just 1 year where maybe you used it a handful of times, and then once you want to use it again, it's kind of maybe I don't know, something not working, or you need a little bit of support. 5 years is great, or 5,000 hours sounds kind of like a car. So that's a great warranty type term. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so before I go into any questions, I want to bring it back to Jackie just a little bit. Jack, do you have any closing notes on Craftbot, your printer, our printer, anything you'd like to add that I might have forgotten, Jackie?
Yeah, I think the main thing is the positioning of this printer is quite different, and I think that's what I want to highlight the most. Traditionally, large printers, it gets really expensive once you get to large printers. And then when you get to Idex, it gets even more expensive. So this is sort of the lowest cost dual Idex printer. So I just want to hammer that point home because it makes those features accessible now to a much broader audience instead of looking at printers where the moment you go larger than a foot in any direction, it gets up to like $8,000. So I think that's my main takeaway for this, and just I just want to highlight the simplicity of everything here and the ease of use. Felix touched on a point on the software where it shows you in expert mode where all the pictures and everything. I want to highlight that one. Check out the software if you haven't seen it yet, because that part is really cool. If you change any of the settings, so for example, shell size, you increase that from 2 to 3, you see a video on the software itself that shows exactly what it does in G code. So that's the best way I've ever seen it explained in terms of the expert settings. So for someone who's getting into 3D printing or relatively new or want to dabble in more in terms of the expert settings. So for someone who's getting into 3D printing or relatively new or want to dabble in more of the advanced settings, it's very informative just to even go through all the settings and change them and see what they actually do in the G code in real time. That part I really want to highlight for people to check out. So yeah, those are my main takeaways from the Craftbot system.
Thank you for that, Jack. And I completely agree with you there. I think in terms of both units and actually all along the Craftbot price range, we are looking at a price range that's more attractive than some of their competitive counterparts. But there's really no compromise. I mean, it's got all of the features that you would expect in a high-end, well-built turnkey solution where you just unbox it, plug it in, and start printing with it. There's really no compromise. I think the only thing that it doesn't have with some of the counterparts is just an enclosure, but not everybody needs that. So I think in terms of a lineup in our product line, it works out extremely well. So I'm actually going to go to questions now, and if I read some of these questions, I might ask both Felix or Jackie, depending on what makes more sense. And these are some questions. I have some questions that I have from people who have asked us over the phone, which I thought was interesting to answer. And then also, if anybody wants to ask any live questions, you can go ahead and type in the YouTube chat now as well, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Okay, so the first question that I have is, okay, this one's probably going to be for Jackie. It's about the Idex, and it's what dual extrusion materials are available on the Idex system.
Yeah, so in terms of the preset in Craftware, there's all the essential ones. So there's PLA, ABS, PETG, and PVA. So with that, you can almost derive all other material presets from those settings. So you would just choose the closest thing. So if you're using BVOH, for instance, you would just use the PVA settings. So pretty much all the materials are there to begin with, all preset on the software. So again, you just have to choose any material that's under 300 degrees, and as long as it sticks to the bed okay, you can likely use that. You just want to be careful about combinations, though. Some combinations don't work with each other. For example, you can't use PLA and ABS at the same time. They just don't stick well, and they don't play well together. So some combinations don't work like that, and you'd have to figure out which ones do work. But in terms of presets, everything is there already.
Awesome. I think that answers it pretty well. The next question is for you, and it's about, actually, both of you can answer it, but I'll give it to you, Felix. Since the Craftbot is an open printer, how loud is it? And also, what are some of the best practices using a printer that is not fully enclosed?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's open. You can hear everything that's happening on here, but I think I touched on it a little bit. But I had this near my laptop, just really close together, testing out different settings, materials, and stuff like that. And I really didn't notice it to be more than just a white noise. It wasn't like grinding, nothing like that. So it's very quiet, around 45, 50 decibels, maybe, just like any other 3D printer out there, to be honest. And then what was the second part of that question, Ken?
Are there any best practices to working with a printer that's open?
Yeah, there are. So number one, make sure that your bed is leveled perfectly, and that applies to any 3D printer out there, enclosed or not. That makes sure that you get a very nice first layer. And then I like to use the Kapton tape for high temperature materials a little bit more than I do for PLA. But either way, I will use some Magic Glue or Demofix as an adhesive to help the material stick down. And that is especially important with the high temperature materials like ABS and nylon that tend to warp a little bit more.
Awesome.
The other best practice thing I would mention is if you have a lot of drafts, we are approaching winter now. So, if the printer is close to a door and then, the door is constantly opening and closing, the sort of blast of change in temperature could actually cause the parts to warp. So if you are using an open printer, you do want to be cognizant of the fact that environmental conditions like a drastic change in temperature can make your parts warp a little bit, or maybe have a layer line split. So that's something to keep in mind for best practices for open type of printers.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. I think I do have another question, but I think Felix already answered it before, and that is just about the warranty. And then finally, the last question is, does the printer have Wi-Fi? Does all models of Craftbot have Wi-Fi? Felix?
I think so. The ones that we carry all have Wi-Fi. So yeah, that was a simple one.
Awesome, great. Well, I think that's all the questions that I have so far. I don't see anything else. If there's any more, I would love to get to those and
hey, Ken,
answer as many as possible.
I have a question for Jackie, actually.
Sure.
Hey, Jackie, how do you find the print quality on your machine? Is it good? Yeah,
it's a good question. Print quality is good. As you can see here, both from large objects and smaller objects, you have pretty good print quality here. You probably won't be able to see this because we're on a pretty wide lens, but we were able to print all these chess pieces without any stringing. These weren't cleaned up after the fact. They were just removed off the build plate. So print quality is fantastic.
Nice. And is there any variation? Yep. Like when you use, I haven't found this to be true, but I use some BSF filament, I use some ESUN filament, I use some of the Craftbot. I haven't found too much difference there, but did you?
I did find a slight difference between the different material types. So I would encourage people to experiment. Like this is the eSun filament. So this one printed pretty fantastically. This is the Craftbot filament, which also printed decently. So yeah, I mean there are slight differences with each type of filament. So I would experiment with them to see which one works the best.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to add on mine. The print quality is pretty great. I printed PLA, PETG, and I think one poor part ABS somewhere near my desk. But the quality is good. Like either way, I didn't have too much trouble getting it to stick. The layer lines look good. Even at the 0.2 millimeter height, I found it great. And then I also printed this dice tower here. It's in multiple pieces. Maybe you can zoom in, where tolerance kind of matter, and it's pretty tight. These things actually collapse, so you can spin them. How does this work? Almost there you go. So you can spin them. Everything kind of fits together really nicely. So I found it to be pretty accurate as well.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to mention the.
Thanks.
In terms of print quality, I wanted to mention the lack of string and the usually with dual extrusion, if the other nozzle is not being used, it kind of strings a little bit. So that's something I want to highlight. There are wipers here that I forgot to mention, but there are silicon wipers on each side. So when the head parts to the side, it does wipe it before going to the print, and I think that helps in reducing some of the stringing that can happen on dual extrusion prints.
Awesome. Felix, any more closing notes?
I think for me, that's it.
Awesome. And Jackie, you're good as well?
Yeah, I'm good too.
Okay, great. So just before we wrap up, I just want to say a couple things. I want to thank John from Craftbot personally for supporting us and getting us set up with their product line. Now, the story I have with John is that when we did COVID stop back in April, when we were making PPE and having the community support us as much as possible, there was a huge shortage of PPE materials, namely PETG sheets and things of that nature. And John, even though he wasn't part of our reselling lineup at the time, just reached out to us and said, hey, we'd love to support you for that cause. And that really introduced us to what type of a character John and Craftbot as a company is we're going to help people first and put everything else aside afterwards. So absolutely want to thank John for stepping up for that. We didn't ask him for it. He just volunteered to support us in that manner. And that was of huge help to us, because I think that helped us, make an extra 500 face shields for the hospitals out there in need. So I want to thank John personally for that and for setting us up with Craftbot. Things went very smoothly, and we're extremely happy to carry this product line. For those of you who are interested, we do have stock availability of the Craftbots available, of the units that you see today, and as well of the middle unit, which is the Flow Idex, not the XL. And that's a slightly smaller version of what Jackie has. This is in stock now in our Mississauga warehouse and ready to ship out right away. We do have promotional pricing going on right now. So that's one thing to take note. If you're looking to get a Craftbot, now is the time to think seriously about it. And also, I would stop back on Black Friday as well. Who knows what might happen and what kind of deals we have for Craftbot and some of our other products as well. So I also want to thank a couple of the people here at Shop3D.ca. First of all, our production team has been extremely busy and working so hard to put this production together. I hope you guys have all enjoyed it. And I also want to thank Jackie for waking up way earlier in the morning over in Vancouver. Felix, of course, doing his fantastic work here. Everything really came together for this live showcase, so I hope you guys all liked it. So that's all from me, Ken from Shop3D.ca. I want to say farewell to everybody and enjoy your day.